All right. Hello and welcome everyone to another edition of Bitcoin Brief with your host, Tone Vays, joined by the one and only Jimmy Song, and of course, our new consistent edition, Bitcoin Mechanic. How are you guys today? Jimmy, I believe you're still in Texas. Mechanic, you're not in your normal studio. Jimmy, how you been, man?
I've been good. I'm going to be coming to Mexico fairly soon. But yeah, it's going to be a road trip, so it's going to take me a few days to get there. But yeah, very excited to
You're
be
driving.
coming to that conference. Yeah, I'm bringing the whole family, so it's
Nice.
going to be a long one.
Mechanic, how about you, man?
Yeah, I'm sitting here. I'm already ready for the conference. I'm down in Baja. Apologies if my internet's a bit unstable. The internet's not great here. I got some palm trees right outside. I don't know if they're visible.
Oh, there it is. That's visible. That's visible. Yeah, you see the ocean right there. Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. It's just funny. I know exactly where you are.
Yeah, I know. That's because it was your friend that you introduced me to that recommended this place. And it's really good. We went on all the normal things like hotel.com and all those places. They didn't even find this hotel. And to book it, I had to message them through WhatsApp. Like the whole thing is like, it's not, but I mean, it's basically the nicest hotel around here, and it's really cheap and really,
it's really great. Yeah, it's really a good spot because I actually stayed there. It's a really cool spot. All right, guys, we got lots to cover today, and let's just get to it. I'll be in Mexico as well. I'm flying out this Friday, but I'm gonna swing through the People's Republic of California for a few days. We'll see. Maybe if a restaurant is open, I'll try to go to dinner with some people, grab a steak. So let's jump right into the news, guys. Got lots and lots to cover. It's going to be a great show. First, let's clear something up. There was a report this week that the biggest Saudi oil giant company is going to get involved in Bitcoin mining. This is why in the traditional markets, people that are involved in deals are told not to say any dumb statements. So what happened was someone that was supposedly was working on some kind of a deal with this company said something crazy, and then the company of course came out and saying, no, we're not interested in Bitcoin mining. So potentially this guy blew the deal. So a lot of these, my understanding of it, I didn't really read into the story too much because it's probably a nothing burger, or some guy who had a deal going with a huge oil giant company that was getting oil. They probably have natural gas that they're just burning off, and they were trying to make a deal to use that energy for Bitcoin mining. And then of course the crypto Twitter runs away with the story. The big oil company comes out and says, whoa, hold your horses there. We don't want to be known as mining Bitcoin because Bitcoin is bad from what we're hearing all over the place. And they potentially blew the deal, which is what happens when you yap on YouTube about Bitcoin and crypto. Your thoughts, Jimmy?
Yeah, that may very well be the case, but I think the economics of something like this makes all the sense in the world for somebody like Saudi Aramco, who drill quite often. And as I found out from Marty, every time you drill for oil, you don't just get oil, you also get a lot of natural gas, and they have to burn that off in order to continue drilling. And the infrastructure isn't usually there near wherever they're drilling in order to pipe the natural gas to a place where they can actually sell it. So burning it off is a cost, but using it to power Bitcoin miners is actually like a profit. So this is something that I think they'll have to get into eventually, just to be able to compete. And of course, people like making money, and this is how capitalism works and so on. So I mean, it may be that they scuttled the deal for now, but I really do think this is kind of inevitable because I mean, like you're going to make more money, and who doesn't like making more money?
So have they actually denied that they're going to do this and it was some sort of fake news thing, or is it just not happening in the way we thought it was supposed to happen?
I think there's still a lot of confusion. And I think you just have to wait for clarity. What I was going to say was, but I was mute. Everything Jimmy just said is going to be contradicted when we talk about the Ethereum London fork. Just keep that in mind as a transition.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on it though, what Jimmy said is accurate, of course, and that's why when I saw this story, I was like, yeah, of course, no brainer. Of course, if you're drilling for oil, you just have all this waste-free energy. Of course, you're going to use it. To me, it was like, yeah, obviously. So the fact that they're like going, no, we're not going to do this now, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It was just logical that they would go ahead and do this.
Right, but all of the demonization of more Bitcoin mining is probably got to them, right? Like the moment the story broke, they were probably bombarded with, you're going to mine Bitcoin, you're going to mine Bitcoin. And here's how I see that meeting. Okay, which of our managers was involved in selling this now? I mean, like some guy probably thought he's about to get a huge promotion selling this natural gas to whoever wants to come and use it right there without transporting it, because transporting natural gas is a pain in the ass. Without transporting it, getting us paid for natural gas, but then, hey, no, we can't sell it to a Bitcoin mining company. That's just going to kill the environment. I mean, it's just like, you're right. The logic of it is insane, but the optics of it, is also gonna make them keep burning this natural gas longer than they should.
I mean, it's the fact that the optics have the public perception of Bitcoin mining is that bad now is just insane. I mean, it's not like they produce something environmentally friendly and the gas is an unwanted byproduct. This is oil, right? This is a fossil fuel anyway. So, I mean, it's mind-boggling that they would. And isn't mining Bitcoin using natural gas a way of cleaning up the flares that they end up having to release anyway?
Yes, but again, it's to the government that prints money, and this is the whole fiat aspect. It doesn't matter. You recently watched all those videos of bulldozers, like the flattening the Bitcoin miners. The confiscated Bitcoin miners were just flattened instead of selling them overseas to whoever wants to use them as mining equipment, right? So like the concept of destroying something you could be paid for is totally not new to those that have been brainwashed into thinking that mining Bitcoin will create more illegal transactions. You're both muted.
Sorry, I had nothing to say anyway.
Okay,
I'll unmute.
that's fine. And it goes back to like something else that I saw. It was like, it was a long time ago. It was basically, look, there is a problem in Africa where elephants and rhinos are being, poached and hunted down for the ivory, for the, the tusks and the horns. And they make very elaborate, beautiful things with that ivory. Of course, this is bad, killing of animals. And then I watched a video where literally it was like $5 to $10 million worth of this ivory from, of course, poaching of endangered species. And the government's idea was to literally destroy it. Instead of, okay, we confiscated it, maybe it's okay for us to sell it and use those millions of dollars to protect those animals better. But no, their genius thought was to destroy. It's been going on forever. It's just not proper thinking.
I mean, isn't this just everything? The way stuff is just. I can't decide whether I'm getting more experienced or if the world is just getting more clownish. It's just.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, we're going to talk about Fluffy's arrest next, but I think there's a better transition to go right into the London fork because it contradicts everything that was just said about, hey, if you have natural gas and you're going to burn it and destroy it, why not just use it for something useful and at the same time, earn more value and generate a profit or whatever, benefit the world. So here comes the Ethereum London fork, which actually has nothing to do with Ethereum 2.0, removing of the miners, but it's a step towards that direction. Ethereum is, of course, rising on this London fork. It's incredible how the price of Ethereum is skyrocketing based on a forced hard fork, from my understanding, and proof how centralized Ethereum is causing the rise in Ethereum's price. So I read up on this morning, and man, did I lose some brain cells. So let me give you guys a brief overview, because people on this channel don't pay that much attention to Ethereum, and neither do we. So this is going to be fun and interesting for all of us. Now, the links are, of course, in the video description. So the London fork is actually 4 things in one. So what are those 4 things? Those are the Ethereum improvement proposals. One of them is 1,559. Jesus Christ, did I have that many of them already, or did they start with like 1,000? So this one is actually 2 parts. The first part adds a base fee to every transaction on the Ethereum blockchain. While that sounds onerous, it actually should have the effect of lowering the overall transaction cost, because it helps you better estimate the fee. Again, like you're gonna lose a couple of brain cells trying to figure out how creating a minimum wage is gonna lower the cost of your employees. This is basically what it sounds like. The current system relies on a sort of live auction to push transactions. Anyway, well, let's stop reading that part. The second aspect of this first IP is the fees no longer goes to the miners. The people all around the world who run, oh yeah, we know what miners are. So where does the fee go? Well, the fee is simply destroyed. By taking coins out of circulation, this creates a deflationary pressure on the network. You know what else can create the deflationary pressure on the network? Not having a difficulty bomb, which is another IP inside the London hard fork that they are now pushing into December. This is basically their equivalent of the debt ceiling. So this is like, man, this makes the Federal Reserve look like they're not messing with the dollar at all. But we go on. Another Ethereum improvement proposal, kind of a sister proposal to the upper one, essentially extends, it's a smart contract. It's just something with smart contracts, which aren't really smart contracts, but whatever. Next, and the final one is, let's do the last one. Removes refunds for certain opcodes. He went on to explain in plain English, debatable, the current Ethereum, you can get a refund on gas, which refers to fees paid for transactions when cleaning up after yourself on the network. Smart contracts and related data can clog up the network. While the gas refunds for cleanup sounds good in practice, what we've seen in practice is most of the refunds are not used for this. They're used for when the gas fees become low and the network, people will fill up the network with basically junk data. And when the gas fees are high, they'll delete all the junk data and get those refunds back. So they're basically just convoluting on top of convoluting, messing with the monetary policy. They're trying to create, make Ethereum more deflationary so that the price of Ethereum goes up. Everything hinges on number go up. Everyone wants their shitcoin to go up in value, so more people speculate in that shitcoin. Ethereum's problem from day one has always been an identity crisis over what the hell is an Ethereum gas token. All right, I've yapped long enough. I know you guys did not, spend your entire week digging into this nonsense. So just general overall thoughts. Mechanic, let's start with you. You've been briefed on this in the last 15 minutes. Let's get some knowledge in.
Yeah, so I mean, it's clownish, and what we're looking at is you just have people that are is the endless moving of goalposts. That's the way I see it. Like most broad stroke analysis I can give, because Bitcoin's monetary policy was set in stone at the beginning, and it won't be changed on you, and it equates into, or it fosters and engineers people having trust in it, because we buy into it and we commit to it doing what it does from the beginning. And we trust that as more people do it, and as the network gets stronger and more resilient and more decentralized, we can rely on the fact that everyone collectively makes it less likely for the monetary policy to ever change. And it's not, people aren't investing in Bitcoin's monetary policy alone. They're also investing in how difficult it would be to change its monetary policy, right? And that's an important factor, because you can't just take something like Ethereum, where the monetary policy, you can invest in it and say, oh, it's good. It's more deflationary than Bitcoin. Actually, we're ultrasound money instead of sound money. All these stupid memes. And you're saying, yeah, but are you ignoring the fact that it can be changed trivially? Because then you're right back to fiat again. And if you go back, that's the whole point, is to get away from the fact that it can be changed at all. Like, I mean, Ethereum would have far more integrity as a project if it had something that was, well, if it would be indicative of integrity, if it couldn't be changed, even if it was inflationary and it was consistently inflationary. At this point, I have more respect for projects that are just openly inflationary, like Doge. They're never going to pretend to be deflationary, or maybe they would. But the point is, if you're doing this stuff, the fact that anyone would say, oh, number go up technology to me in Ethereum is the fact that I trust Vitalik and his guys to adjust and tweak stuff and move goalposts around to make my Ethereum worth more in the long run. The fact that you would look to that and somehow reassuring and a justification for investment in this whole thing is just so pie in the sky that I can't believe anyone would be foolish enough to do it, let alone the identity crisis you mentioned as well, which is, we have what does it do exactly? We power smart contracts with it. Okay, just buy the smart contract tokens, buy the Ethereum as and when you need to power the smart contracts. No, they're also an investment, because these guys will control how many of them there are. And I mean, it's just so ignorant to think that that can be treated as a store of value. And then the actual proposal itself, switching to burn instead, I mean, that's somehow reminiscent of, like, if every time you spent dollars, the transaction, because it was digital, instead of how fiat currency works now, where you can spend $1 and the dollar goes from you to somewhere else and it's done. Now there's some sort of sophistication going on in the background, where some of that dollar is used to pay for something to maintain the infrastructure of the dollar itself, and that's all being decided by someone that isn't you. And it might be a good thing, it might be a bad thing, it definitely might change on you. It's so hard to think that anyone can really be an Ethereum investor at this point that has actually looked into this thing and done a basic amount of research. And I would say I don't know any, but then you get these people like the Winklevoss twins who are, make some good points and are good committed Bitcoiners, and they come out and say, yeah, we're invested in Ethereum too. That's the future. And you're like, huh? What's going on? How is anyone not seeing this stuff for the complete joke that it is? Anyway, that's my point.
Jimmy?
Muted, bro.
Yeah. So one of the things that you pointed out in this article that's very interesting to me is that apparently you could delete data from the Ethereum blockchain, which is crazy. The whole point of having a blockchain, at least in Bitcoin, is so that you can audit every single thing that happened and make sure that everything balances. But with Ethereum, apparently you can have data that's been removed. So that essentially makes it impossible to audit. How are you going to know the state of anything if things have since been deleted? A blockchain is supposed to be an append-only log, so that you can replay everything and make sure that everything is on the up and up. They're basically making it so that you have no idea. And if you weren't running a full node when the deletion happened, you have no idea whether something previously used to be there that got deleted. I mean, if you could delete junk data, you could delete the balance of
Jimmy,
your Ethereum.
If people were running full nodes, you would not be able to hard fork this thing and change its like monetary and fee policies.
Yeah, exactly. This is probably one of the things that you could get away with, because it's not decentralized at all. Like in order for it to be decentralized, a lot of other people have to be serving up the same data and so on. This isn't that at all. It's they know that only a few players actually run full nodes, so they can do whatever policy they want, and they can strong arm other people into running the code that they want, instead of, say, something like Ethereum Classic or whatever. And the thing about this is that, when you see all of the stuff that they're doing, they're essentially taxing miners. They're able to impose some sort of like a minimum wage, and like try to harden the money by putting some deflationary pressure. You could kind of see why CBDCs are so attractive, because Ethereum at this point is basically a CBDC. It's a central bank of Ethereum, and they control everything. And they like with central banks as they are today, they don't get to determine like the minimum fees for everybody and so on. I guess you can pass laws and stuff, but you need to go through a legislature to say, okay, well, the minimum fee on bank transactions is $2 or something to that effect. Instead, with Ethereum, you can be not just sort of like the monetary policy person, like sort of pushing strings and so on, but you can control all aspects of transactions, including how much it costs for one person to send to another, different fees, different data that they don't like in the blockchain to be deleted, and different, I mean, you could pick winners and losers straight from the central bank instead of having to do it through legislation and so on. So in a sense, like this shows the power of what central bank digital currencies can do. I think I'm going to start calling Ethereum a CBDC 1.0 or something like that. But yeah, this whole thing is it's a playground for would-be bureaucrats that are trying to determine how to design society, or like basically influence their community through different laws and incentives. I mean, to call it decentralized in any way, shape, or form is a complete joke at this point, because they determine the winners and losers, they determine the fees, they determine the taxes, they determine everything. So how can you call it decentralized at all?
And they're about to remove their miners, right? I mean, that's the whole push for Ethereum 2.0. The removal of the mining. And I see people in the comments are like, you've been calling for the death of Ethereum for 4 years, and you've been wrong the whole time. Ethereum, with every single month that goes by, they are proving how they are more and more centralized and more a central bank's digital currency, just like Jimmy is pointing out. The fact that people love it and want more of it is not really our concern. We're proving that Ethereum is centralized, and it is nothing like Bitcoin. Ethereum is a lot closer to being the US dollar, with Vitalik Buterin, the head of the Federal Reserve. Like that's what we're here to explain to you. Now, whether you believe that's good or bad is up to you. Whether you believe Ethereum is a good investment or not is up to you. Okay, like we all hate Facebook and Google because they don't respect our privacy, but their stock keeps going up, right? We're here explaining what Ethereum actually is from a blockchain perspective, but it's up to you to decide whether it's an investment opportunity. It's not an investment opportunity for us because we are here for decentralization. We are not here to, cheer Vitalik's monetary policy updates.
Yeah, and I'd say Ethereum may never die, because for the same reason that casinos will never go out of business. You're never gonna fix the fact that some people are just stupidly and ignorantly investing in this thing, believing that they're going to get rich off of it. That's not necessarily ever going to end. So Ethereum, when it comes to like on a technical level, if Ethereum just eventually implodes, that's not really something we can expect either, because they can always just manually rescue it and do whatever ridiculousness they have to do to keep the ship afloat. So this thing may go on forever, but it doesn't mean it doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It exists in a world where Bitcoin exists, and you'd be crazy to invest in anything pretty much that isn't Bitcoin. And that goes for whether you're talking about shitcoins or fiat or real estate or precious metals. The fact that Bitcoin exists means there is now a perfect store of value that we can use. So relative to that, Ethereum was never alive in the first place. And then you have the debate, what about Ethereum Classic? Like, the fact is that was a contentious hard fork. It was forced on the community. And what sadly happened is that all the Ethereum heads that, all the F heads that had any integrity remained on the network as it was supposed to have been. And it got rebranded as Ethereum Classic. And what we see from that is that not enough people were actually interested in Ethereum's potential, that basically what it could do, real unstoppable code, which is Ethereum Classic, just was abandoned to the point where it gets 51% attacked all the time and no one really cares. So the Ethereum project is totally dead when it comes to at least some of the initial intentions of the project. But as you go deeper into it, they've all been abandoned anyway. It's pivoted over and over again. It's marketed differently all the time. So I don't know, it depends on how you define life. But Ethereum, in my opinion, was just never really alive in the first place. I mean, it's certainly not after the DAO hard fork.
And the Ethereum Classic has been 51% attacked multiple times, and it's still alive. I mean, these things don't die because human stupidity has no bound.
Well, the thing is, like they're having to market things like in a more extreme way, and this reminds me of sort of like central bank monetary policy back in the 80s. I think that the crash of 87 or something like that, they dropped the rates by like 0.25% from 5.25 to 5% or something like that, and that brought the economy back. 92, they had to drop it like a full point or something like that, all the way up to. More recently, they had to not only drop it to zero, but they had to start doing QE in order to bring the economy back.
The 08.
Yeah. So this sort of thing is this is what the Ethereum stuff is reminding me of. They only had to say, okay, well, code is law, which sounds pretty good, and then they broke that. Then they had to like promote ICOs. Then they had to promote IEOs, and then like DeFi and NFTs, and now like this we're going to have like even more we're going to have deflationary pressures by taxing miners, that sort of thing. It's a way to keep marketing, and it costs them a little more each time. So this tax on the miners, they're going to lose a significant part of their economy, which is miners. And who knows what that does to their price. But I suspect that the miners were probably more important than they think. And, like just sort of cutting them out like that, it's going to have an effect on their economy that they don't anticipate. And I expect them to have to do something more drastic to fix the mess that's going to come out of this one, and then something more drastic to fix the mess from the fix of this mess, and so on. This is the pattern with any sort of like government intervention into anything. I don't think Ethereum is going to be any different. They have this pretense of knowledge, as Hayek would call it, on thinking that they know better than the rest of the economy or the free market in knowing what's good for the rest for everybody else. And they see themselves as philosopher kings that can lead and do whatever. It doesn't work.
At the least, they should hire some Federal Reserve people who actually understand monetary policy before, because these developers clearly don't. They're going to just keep changing it. Like at least hire some professionals that understand how to. You're
not going to get me to say anything good about Federal Reserve directors, okay? Like I really don't think they understand economics because they're paid not to.
But these guys don't either, right? So like at least hire some professional help. If you're gonna,
it is. I mean, it is fiat currency on steroids, like, which is what CBDCs are basically. So I completely agree with framing it that way. But I mean, another thing to point out is that you are being, it's an incredibly punitive way to treat your miners. But this is the point, right? They have what you call the analog of, or sorry, the what's cognate to the debt ceiling, which is they have this difficulty bomb, which they keep pushing back. So every time they release a punitive, let's just call it legislation, that would screw over miners and lessen their income, they also say, but if you don't accept this hard fork, then you're going to sail straight into the difficulty bomb and you'll go bankrupt anyway, unless you create yet another hard fork away yourself. So miners are kind of incentivized and bullied into saying, you're going to have to accept this. You know, it's like if we had regular hard forks in Bitcoin and we used them, we had some impending doom for all our miners that would ruin their income completely. But we kept hard forking Bitcoin, and every time we hard forked in changes that people might not want, we'd delay the doom a little bit, so everyone just has to come along with it anyway. It's really political in nature, and like if I had I mean, I'd really wonder what the better philosophers would say about this, just where all these changes are coming from, that just the evil that has to be embraced to allow for a project to be structured this way, whether or not and everyone gets hung up on the changes, right? Like, here's what we're doing to Ethereum. We're doing this, which should have that effect. Just the nature of the fact that these things can be imposed on people is just so immoral in and of itself that, you know, that's what you really would be discussing rather than what the nature of the changes is. It's just I don't know. I'll finish there and let's move on from Ethereum, I think.
Right, let's move on. And we have a lot of noobs in the live chat continuing to say that, well, I can't afford a Bitcoin, so I want to buy into others. You don't have to buy a full Bitcoin. I don't understand. Like, it's like no one is forcing you to. You can buy whatever money you can spend. I mean, it's just unit bias, and eventually Bitcoin will be represented in Satoshis, where one Satoshi is, 5 cents. So no one is forcing you to buy one Bitcoin. You shouldn't.
The best altcoin.
If you can't afford one Bitcoin, then buy a 0.1 Bitcoin. If you can't afford 0.1 Bitcoin, buy 1/100th of a Bitcoin. Like no one is, you don't have to buy a full Bitcoin. I don't understand how in 2021 we still have to explain this to people. All right. Anyway,
people are used to discrete mathematics, not continuous. So yeah.
Right. Real quick. I mean, this happened back in April, and where Cardano announced that they have achieved 100% decentralization. I mean, like, I think we covered this is in Yahoo, for God's sakes, right? Like, it's like it's like me being in the news saying my couch has achieved decentralization, which would probably actually be more realistic than Cardano achieving 100% decentralization.
I saw that, man. I keep seeing crypto in the wild on the flight to Mexico in the tube, to get on the plane, that whatever it's called, the little tunnel you go in after you show your boarding pass. I had these two crypto bros in front of me talking about Cardano and how it's going to go up, and it's so sad to see people just talking about this one's going to go up, that one top. Like, it's just, and they immediately sat down in first class. So I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, I think like it's really a career being a crypto head now, just knowing about projects and prices and promises. And, it amazes me that it still goes on. But
I equate it to the lottery, where you're basically playing the lottery and not realizing that the guys running the lottery make all the money. So the guys who create all of these shit coins, they're running the lottery. You're playing the lottery. Who do you think comes out on top?
Well, I don't know. The whole thing is sort of like, again, it doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? So crypto exists in a world where, you have basically, if you decide not to get into crypto and just stay in, which is pleb investing, right? And instead stay in just dollars because you're not interested in finance at all, then you lose 20% a year of your purchasing power or something like that. So it kind of makes sense, like, to just be a complete idiot and just put your money in various top 10 crypto projects, because chances are they're still going to do better than the dollar because the dollar's so bad. So, like, it goes back to Jimmy's article again. Just the absolute postmodern, nothing is objectively true anymore. Like the nature of investing right now, it makes sense to actually not even analyze this stuff and just assume that everyone else is going to do stupid stuff because they're kind of forced to by the nature of the system we're in.
Yeah, and I have we have Zender in the live chat saying that like Ethereum literally has to fork every few months to prevent Ethereum from not functioning due to the difficulty bomb. It's hilarious how people think it's decentralized.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on from explaining decentralization. By the way, I do have an article on decentralization, which I probably should have pulled up earlier. Just go to my blog. That was my calendar, and it's the first one. What is crypto decentralization and why Bitcoin stands alone? Okay, we need to talk about what happened with Ricardo Spangi, Fluffy Pony. I know Jimmy and I have met him in person many, many times. I don't know if you ever have, Mechanic, but I'm going to just summarize the story. I'm going to let you guys give your thoughts. So Monero's former maintainer arrested in the US for allegations unrelated to cryptocurrency. Unrelated, but obviously this wouldn't be news if he wasn't who he was, and this probably would not have been delayed as much. So I guess the illegal activity goes back to before he was involved in the crypto space, back to 2009 through 2011, with the initial case, I guess, being opened in South Africa. So Fluffy is accused of creating fake invoices at the company he was working at, Cape Cookies, and kind of scamming the company, I guess, for up to 100,000 US dollars, where the company was paying for these invoices into his personal bank account, maybe not personal, maybe some kind of a shell corporation, whatever, right? But that is the accusation. You can read the entire report. Now, Fluffy has been fighting this in court since, I guess, 2012. And according to the case documents, they're accusing Fluffy of not showing up at the last court date, making him a fugitive who fled South Africa, avoiding the charge. He was picked up as his private plane was refueling in Nashville, Tennessee, on his way to Bruce Fenton's Satoshi Roundtable. This happened about 10 days ago. We're finding out about it now. Everyone is still fixated on his $800,000 watch, which is very weirdly mentioned in the court filing. Like, if I go to the court filing and I put the number 800,000, it actually shows up, which is insane the way it shows up in the court filing. Additionally, Spangi is believed to have a significant cryptocurrency assets that would enable him to flee. This is why he's basically is not allowed bail, because they're afraid he's a flight risk, though they caught him on his private plane. So how much of a flight risk can he be? He reportedly lectures worldwide on topics related to cryptocurrency, was lead maintainer of Monero, cryptocurrency projects that aim to obfuscate the linkability of transactions, is believed to have significant crypto assets, and reportedly has assets including a watch valued at 100,000. So literally, it's in the court file. Like, why is this important? Why is his watch so important? It's insane. It's like some of these court filings amaze me. All right, guys, your general thoughts. I'm very conflicted on this issue, so I'll give my thoughts last. Jimmy, you want to go first since you're unmuted?
Yeah, sure. It does explain a few things. So if you guys don't remember, 2019, the Magical Crypto Conference, he's one of the Magical Crypto friends, right? Along with Charlie Lee, Whale Panda, and Samson Mao. He couldn't show up, and he was more or less sort of like stopped at the border for some reason. This helps to explain maybe what happened there. He did show up like a few months later at Bitcoin 2019 though. So I was kind of like, what happened, dude? And he's like, oh, it's just some sort of mix up or something. But it sounds like this is something that's been hanging over his head. It's crazy to me that someone this rich couldn't get this 100K thing settled more quickly. It is kind of like this, this thing where it's very difficult to like live a normal life when you have something like that hanging over your head. And, this is the reason why, like people that are like, oh yeah, I'm just not going to report taxes using Bitcoin or whatever. They're not going to, because, having a government after you is a serious thing. I didn't know that he had a private jet or that he had access to a private jet. Apparently that didn't prevent the U.S. authorities from arresting him. You would think that, if it were a commercial flight, it would be a lot easier for like air marshals to, know the flight manifest and stuff like that. This one, I don't know. It feels like something is, they have it out for him or something to that effect. I am familiar with Fluffy, and I've talked to him many times and so on. So, I don't wish anybody to be in prison or anything, and I really hope he gets out. But yeah, it's kind of blatant how unfair this is for him. But that said, like, I kind of wonder why he hasn't settled like much earlier. It's not that much money.
Yeah, that's what that was going
else.
to be my views on this. Mechanic, you want to go next?
Yeah, I don't know Fluffy personally. It seems like he's just involved in some, gray area stuff, and he seems to be one of these Kim.com kind of figures that manages to annoy governments and make them pretty angry and agitated and bend their own rules trying to catch the guy. So I don't know. I don't really have anything to add to this. I mean, the only thing I noticed was that the only light bulb that went off in my head was, oh, there was that bug, that suddenly everyone became aware of in Monero last week, and I think for our last news show, and he made no comments on it whatsoever and was completely unheard of, and I found that really strange. And obviously now it makes sense because he's dealing with all this stuff. So that was the only thing I suddenly went, oh, right.
Right. So this is what I was going to add to Jimmy's take. This has a lot to do with crypto. I mean, they're trying to play it off like it has nothing to do with crypto. But like as Jimmy said, yes, he committed a crime 10 years ago. It was $100,000, crime, and people do go to prison for that kind of stuff. But he also had the money to like settle this with, pay him a few $1 million and kind of get out of it, and without doing any serious time, maybe a camp, like a Charlie Shrem kind of deal, 1 to 2 years. But Fluffy is super rich. Fluffy is in that borderline. I mean, I don't want to speculate how much money he has, but he has a lot. He's in that camp with like the Roger Veers of the world, where I would put him between 100 million net worth and $1 billion. So I know it's a big gap, but I put him somewhere in between that. And the government of South Africa, along with most governments around the world, aren't exactly known for its transparency the way the U.S. government is known for. And I'm not saying the U.S. government legal system is a saint. It's just, probably a little bit better than some of these other countries. And the end goal is to not confiscate $1 million or $2 million from Fluffy, but is to get him for 80 to 90% of his net worth, if not 100% of his net worth. So if that is your end goal of trying to get 500 million plus out of Fluffy, then this is exactly what you would do. You would create an international situation. You would not allow him to eliminate this problem by other means. You would claim that he became a rich, almost billionaire by having this $100,000 that he scammed out of the company, and therefore everything that he's done in the last 10 years is ill-gotten gains. And he goes and he's being sentenced, or his potential is 20 years in prison for this. So it'll be 20 years in prison, or he gives up his entire life savings. And this is the problem, as Jimmy mentioned. The governments hate Bitcoiners. Bitcoiners and people in cryptocurrency have created many new millionaires that don't like to play by the government's rules. And every single Bitcoiner, us included, on this YouTube channel or anyone else that isn't able to keep their mouth shut, too late for some of us, we're all targets because the government doesn't like us. They don't like people that are becoming wealthy or influential or worse, both, without their permission. And everyone is at risk of what happened to Fluffy. Now, Fluffy was a low-hanging fruit because he did commit a crime back in the day, though I don't want to like, it wasn't good what he did. I hate it when people scam the private sector, but the punishment in this case is going to be significantly worse than the crime. And I'm sure he's been trying to get rid of this thing for a long time. All right. Any additional thoughts before we move on to actual Bitcoin?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a funny situation, but I mean, it looks like, I think your characterization of it is really, really apt because it's not just Bitcoin. Like crypto attracts people that really want to that are into money and want to get around government red tape. I mean, that's why, like, sometimes what's legal and what's moral actually line up, right? Even if the enforcement of it's not moral. So, like you frequently point out, what the SEC does is actually sometimes prevent investors from getting scammed by the people they're investing in or the companies they're investing in. And shitcoiners get around that with these illegal securities, right? And they're only doing that for the purposes of wanting to scam their investors. And it's very attractive to people that want to do that stuff. So, but I mean, that's not all there is. There's just the nature of Monero and how it works. I want to say Fluffy Pony has a very strong personal interest in getting technology like that functional to the point where he can use it to evade this kind of, control over his finance. So I can imagine him having done a lot to make sure that if he's in the situation he's in now, that he has a lot of money that they just can't touch and can't verify that he owns. And I mean, an $800,000 piece of jewelry on your wrist says to me that you're into sovereign wealth. Maybe not the smartest sovereign wealth, because it would be a lot better if he had 24 words in his head than $1 million on his arm. But, nonetheless, I think I'm very interested to know about this guy's contingency planning and what he's thinking. I mean, it's all kind of a bit murky for me morally, but it's very interesting nonetheless.
All right, let's move on over to a couple of Bitcoin stories. Where are we here? All right, the infrastructure bill. Holy shit. So this is another one of those, 3,000 to 7,000 pages, whatever the hell it was, something gigantic, where only a small fraction of it has to do with infrastructure, and the rest of it has to do with straight up tyranny. And so here's that bill. The congressman that put the bill together apparently has never done anything with cryptocurrencies. So the suspicion is that Janet Yellen, and we all know about her. God, I'm not surprised that Biden brought her back into the fold. He's just bringing in all of like the more communist tendencies you have, the more likely you are to work for the Biden administration. It's really, really horrible. But yeah, so the suspicion is her and the Treasury Department were involved in putting together this ridiculous bill. We have one senator that understands how unworkable it is. And the main thing has to do with taxes of the custodians of Bitcoin. So there was this article, infrastructure bill. It's go time for radical self-custody. And I didn't mean to click on that, but I'll let you guys talk about it. Jimmy, why don't you kick us off on this one? Oh, mute it.
So Jeremy Rubin's a core developer, and this is his blog, and he's it's a very good blog, by the way. I totally follow it. But his he heard through the grapevine basically exactly the story that you just said, that it was inserted by the Biden administration as a way to sort of put a kibosh on the Bitcoin stuff, and as a way to oppress those of us that are in this industry. Obviously a lot of senators are making noise. It's not just Toomey from Pennsylvania, but Ron Wyden, who's a Democrat out of Oregon, is also expressing some concerns over the tax language on this bill. But yeah, there's some plots afoot, and for whatever reason, a lot of people in government are trying to do things with Bitcoin or to suppress it in some way, shape, or form. So, his point here is that we need to get some of these other things done so that we could have radical self-custody and make it so that they don't it doesn't go through these centralized players like exchanges and so on. Which I think I generally agree with the sentiment. I don't agree that we should necessarily hurry it up, although necessity might be the mother of invention. Whatever restrictions that the government puts on us in the next few years, like coders will probably find something to help combat that. So
let's explain the biggest concerns that are in this bill.
Yeah, the big one is the definition of broker. So they define broker, I think, at least in the original one, as anyone that helps in any way in transmitting transactions. And that would have meant miners and maybe even full nodes and things like that. And they would all be required to do some AML KYC as a result of that. So it would have been completely onerous and wouldn't have made any sense. How
does a wallet like Blockstream Green or Samurai or whatever, any even cold wallet, or like Edge, formerly Airbit, like they don't have your personal information. How can they KYC your transactions?
Yeah, well, so that would be the thing. If you call home to some sort of server or something like that, and and that company controls the server, then you would be you would be a broker in some way, shape, or form. So they're trying to clarify the language, because the language as it was would have been able to be used by, say, the Biden administration to round up pretty much anything Bitcoin related to sort of ban it in some way. That's kind of like why there's a lot of people up in arms about this, including Jeremy. But yeah, I think we have to recognize it for what it is. It's an attack on Bitcoin. It's it's a way to try to regulate it and give the executive branch authority to enforce and give them more power and so on. Which in some ways, you can argue might not be a terrible thing for Bitcoin, because a lot of centralized entities like altcoins or whatever, they have a single point of failure. It's okay, you're breaking the law, you're aiding and abetting on these transactions. We're going to call you a dealer, a broker, and therefore you're going to have to pay this massive fine or throw you in prison or something like that. With Bitcoin, in a way, you take out a lot of these entities and maybe move them out of the U.S. And make it more resilient against attacks like this.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. It might or might not be a bad thing.
Yeah, let me add to that, because I completely agree with what the idea you're floating there at the end, and I think it's a necessary part of Bitcoin. And I've been talking to Giacomo about this as well, because I've been feeling like I'm crazy because so few people agree with me here. You probably disagree with me, Tone. I like this stuff. When governments come after Bitcoin, that's the best possible scenario for us. When they're friendly to us and they create happy temporary environments like, oh, Bitcoin mining is fine, don't worry, says the Chinese government. We're going what happens then is you get areas of centralization and weakness, which can be disruptive ultimately when the governments change their tune. I think that the Bitcoin was designed deliberately to be able to fight and win governments. So having them be friendly to us just makes everyone engage in crappy practices. And Like Nigeria is the perfect example. When they made it illegal, all that happens is price goes up and everyone starts doing everything peer-to-peer and learning how to self-custody, which is exactly how Bitcoin should be used, and it makes the network more resilient. When governments make it legal and they're friendly to it, everyone just leaves their coins on centralized exchanges, and they see all this false equivalence between shitcoins and Bitcoin. Because if governments come after crypto as a whole, which is what Elizabeth Warren is really talking about, I mean, they don't really differentiate that much. They just see Bitcoin as sort of a better version of the other cryptos, but they're all kind of similarly structured. I mean, no one really draws the strong line, apart from when we saw Meltdown Demiroz have that, when the guy said, oh, okay, so there's Bitcoin and shitcoin. They don't see much difference. So if they come after it, what they do is they kill the shitcoins and they make Bitcoin stronger, because Bitcoin is the only one that's been designed and has achieved the kind of scale needed to be able to resist this kind of attack. And I just think ultimately, look back at Bitcoin's history, look back at when central points failed, and rather than see them as things that Bitcoin, oh, phew, it managed to survive, instead see it as things that were actually really helpful. Like, would you want to see a situation where Mt. Gox was still the dominant exchange because, oh, we got lucky and it never collapsed? Like, it's actually better than it did collapse. And what if we'd never had any developers go rogue? What if Gavin Andreessen and Mike Hearn hadn't done what they'd done? I'd argue we'd be in a weaker position now than we actually are. And every one of these disastrous events that happens to Bitcoin just adds resilience and strength to it. And people, it's like the flowchart. Is this good for Bitcoin? No. Then yes, it's good for Bitcoin. It's like, the stupid meme. I think that's the situation with Bitcoin. If it's bad for Bitcoin, it's good for Bitcoin. And if it appears good on the surface, like friendliness from governments, it just creates bad practices and sloppiness. And people seem to, I'm on the warpath about this, because I spent all week, dipping in and out of clubhouse rooms and spaces, and everyone's saying, call your senator, you've got to write Congress, you've got to do this, we've got to get this changed. And I'm like, do you really think Bitcoin is here and you're hoping that it will be treated nicely by governments, otherwise it's in trouble? Because you don't understand the first thing about it, and you should sell what you own. If you think Bitcoin needs governments to be friendly to it to survive, it's irrational to hodl. You shouldn't. You should sell, because governments don't like this thing. They are going to fight it, and it's going to win those fights. But if you don't, it's perfectly reasonable if you come to a different conclusion to me to say, oh, Bitcoin, this might kill Bitcoin. Like, I've seen OG Bitcoiners that are old friends that I really respect being like, this is the first time I've considered selling. And I'm like, did you think governments were just going to be cool about it the whole time? Like, you're crazy. Like, Bitcoin was designed to kick these, it was designed to attack central banks and win. So, like, if you don't think it can do that, you have to sell. You really do.
Right. Well, I agree on that latter part with you, and I do agree on the whole Mt. Gox and developers going rogue part. But I am on the other side of this debate. I am on the debate that this is not good for Bitcoin. And I'm just going to use the internet itself and North Korea as an example, right? Look, the internet sucks. We have no privacy. No one respects privacy. No one is utilizing internet in the proper way. Everyone just wants to give away their data. But at the same time, it's still better than the North Korean control and not giving people the internet at all. So I would rather be in an environment where the Western governments are accepting and allow the internet to go on, versus something like the North Korean government. And China is kind of in between because they have a lot more control of the internet. But North Korea doesn't let their people have the internet. And yes, it's possible for a North Korean to get on the internet, but it is very, very dangerous for a North Korean to get on the internet. And it requires a lot of knowledge for them to get on the internet properly. But I believe it's possible if you buy the right satellite, if you point it in the right direction, and you still have a huge risk on that.
That is a good point. Sorry, Jimmy, if you wanted to respond.
Well, I'm kind of in between the two of you. I don't think anyone really wants a more authoritarian government, which is what's necessary in order to, oppress Bitcoin, basically. And I like the fluffy, pony thing shows us that, it's hard having that over your head, and, being sort of like a fugitive from the law or doing something quote unquote illegal. That's a pretty big burden. And I don't think I would wish that on anybody. But at the same time, I do think that mechanic is right. Like whenever you do have sort of these attacks against Bitcoin gets stronger and it finds a way around all of the different attacks that a government might have against it. So in a sense, like I agree with both of you. I really don't want an authoritarian government, but I also want people to do things the right way. Unfortunately, like it's sort of like a balance of both, because the nicer a government is to people, the lazier they get and the worse their practices are. But the more authoritarian a government is, the worse it is for the people. It kind of sucks. So yeah, I'm gonna be firmly in between the both of you.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think like we've abandoned this concept though of a high trust society. Like I'm used to living in Europe or North America where it's not, we don't have the presumption of corruption. We generally have sort of sat around sort of going, it's okay. Like you can call the police if something goes wrong. It's not going to be a net negative. Like they are genuinely more reliable than not. And all of these assumptions, I think, are just gone. Frankly, I think since 9/11, for me, it's been untenable. But then since the COVID tyranny, I'm like, that's it. We have to abandon hope of all this. And frankly, I see humanity somewhat in the same way that I see Bitcoin, which is I hope they just go too far with it and people just go, that's it. We've got to stand up to this and we've got to, reassert our rights. And they can no longer be treated as optional. I mean, all of the Constitution, like people keep saying, it's just a piece of paper, right? It doesn't mean anything if it's not actively defended. And it all went away with the Patriot Act anyway, and it was all temporary government measures that are permanent. So I think ultimately, I mean, we don't want to see authoritarianism. No one wants to live under it. But at what point do you admit that you're already there? I mean, it's too far. It's ridiculous at the moment. So the only thing that can really save us, in my opinion, is the correct use of technology. And the technology exists. Like, this is the thing, Bitcoin is there, but we can't force anyone to use it. And even if they do use it, we can't force them to use it in the right way. But governments being friendly to it is definitely a good way to make people use it the wrong way. So it's, again, like see it this way, like just to add to my point, and we can jump onto the next topic if you like, but this point I find, like, look at the fact that there was a financial blockade against WikiLeaks, and look at the fact that there are so many illegal drugs and you're denied bodily self-sovereignty, at least with regard to what chemicals you put in that are psychoactive. So you had the Silk Road and all those darknet markets come on. Look at how those two government oppression in those two areas meant that that was a big part of bootstrapping Bitcoin in the first place, right? It can be very helpful when governments make certain things illegal, because it means people have to come up with ingenious solutions to root around governments that are so good and so efficient that they just exist in perpetuity, and something becomes completely unenforceable on a going forward basis. So I think ultimately, I agree with Jimmy, no one wants to live under this stuff, but I just say we already do. And the fact is, if we root around it technologically, then it becomes a situation where we can never get back here again because the technology is just too good. So I think it's painful. It's like ripping a Band-Aid off, but it's just got to be done.
Audio, that might have been me. Shit.
Yeah, I think it's, sorry if it's, I think it's okay on my end. I'm just saying, I think it's painful. I think Jimmy's absolutely right. It hurts and no one wants to live in these circumstances. But I say, if we do, and I think we already do, but if we were to, it's going to hurt, but we'll be stronger for it.
All right. So since you mentioned Assange, I actually met Assange's dad and brother, and this is where I might be losing the audio anytime something plays. So they are trying to finance a documentary film, besides trying to finance, getting him out of the prison that he's in. So that's Julian Assange's dad. They were at Bitcoin 2021. Please check it out. Please support documentaryaustralia.com, Project Ithaca. So please check that out. I should add the link to the video description as well. I tweeted this out recently. They're not even close to raising like doesn't seem like that much money considering what Julian Assange has done for Bitcoin itself. I mean, that's how I first heard about Bitcoin on Max Kaiser's show. Yeah, so this is Gabriel Shipton is Julian Assange's brother. So shout out to them and their fight for their brother and son.
Yep, big shout out to them. Thank you to you for introducing me to Gabriel and Julian's father at Bitcoin 2021. I've kept in touch with Gabriel since, and I'm aware of the problems and the nature of the fight they're taking on. I've actually learned a lot since then.
Well, let's get him on the show. We should do a show. We should get him and Dad on the show, and we'll talk about what's going on.
He said the main thing they struggle for is bandwidth, which it doesn't matter what they do, they just can't get any press attention, which stands to reason because the journalism today is a career that belongs to people with no spine whatsoever, because anyone with a spine doesn't want to get Assanged. So they abandoned and threw under the bus anyone with any integrity in that industry. So the last thing they want to do is give any sort of validation to someone that actually stood up. And, you know, it's the crab in a bucket thing. Have you seen that crab in a bucket meme? That,
yeah, I read all about it in the steamed white paper, bro, and all the ridiculousness that thing had.
Can you show that chart I just sent you in the Zoom chat? I know it's going back to the Ethereum topic, but it was something, an overall point I wanted to make on that thing. I don't know if you saw the chat I sent. Oh, there it is.
I've seen this before, yeah.
But like, if you look at that, which one of those looks like politics and which one of those looks like maths?
Yeah, it's insane. And this thing is still like changing, right? Is someone still keeping this up to date? Looks like
no, it's definitely changed because of this this new hard fork. I'm sure this would be very different as well.
Yeah, someone needs to update this. Whoever made this needs an update. All right, we do need to move on a little bit. We got 2 more topics. Hopefully, we have time for both of them. So one of the things that will help is, of course, Joinmarket. There is another client, I guess, Jimmy. Tell us about this. And also, I'm waiting till every single wallet has some kind of a coin join or equivalent in it. So every transaction is more private. When is that coming?
Yeah, I mean, that's up to the wallet developer. So I don't think that's something that you can sort of enforce. But you know, the nice thing about Joinmarket is that you can run your own like server and so on. The thing about this release that has me excited is the use of fidelity bonds. So one of the weaknesses of a coin join is that if you get Sybil attacked, that is, you know, if some entity takes up most of the coin join, then they can still track you because they know which input you have and which output you have from, you know, because they can just eliminate the ones that they're doing. The nice thing about this particular release is that it incorporates fidelity bonds, which make it so that if you're doing that, you have to lock up your coins for some amount of time. And this is a very sort of like mild form of, you know, resisting DDoS attacks, so that if you are trying to do that, you have to take up a large majority of any coin join, you're going to lock up a lot of money for a good amount of time, and that's the you're going to be need to be funded very well and so on. So they're just making it very expensive for you to execute this attack, which is a really good way of making the Joinmarket, you know, coin join stuff less traceable by third parties. So I thought it was really interesting, and hopefully other coin join protocols do something to this effect.
Mechanic, any comments?
Yeah, I'm still to use Joinmarket. It seems to be totally badass from what I can discover. And I guess I could weigh in on one thing here in the whole CoinJoin sphere, which has been driving me nuts, which is this stupid animosity between Samurai and
Wasabi.
And Wasabi.
Yeah, everyone keeps asking for us to choose sides.
Okay, so I got a take on this. I got a take on this.
Go ahead.
Which is do not listen to anything. Trust no information about Wasabi if it comes from Samurai, because none of the criticisms that they've made have ever been legitimate as far as I can tell. But this is completely independent of the Samurai software itself. For some reason, the drama between the two of them, well, I don't even want to say that, because as far as I can tell, Wasabi have had integrity and they don't seem to feel the need to take random shots at Samurai. But Samurai are just every day I see a bunch of ridiculousness from Samurai targeted at Wasabi, which turns out not to be true. Nonetheless, Whirlpool, if you use it right, seems to be great, and Wasabi is definitely great, though it's limited in the sense that you can only do coin joins of 0.1 Bitcoin, which means, that's $3,800 worth of Bitcoin you have to do to buy yourself some privacy. All this will change anyway. I don't know how far away CoinSwap is. I really want CoinSwap. I have to see that happen in Bitcoin. I would love it. But then you also have cross-input signature aggregation to incentivize coin joining when we finish up Schnorr. So things are going to get shaken up in this space anyway. But I'd say when it comes to the drama, I'm not picking a side. If I had to, it would definitely be Wasabi, but it's stupid anyway. There's just seems to, I asked Shinobi point blank, like, what's going on? Why is there just this ridiculousness? And he said, look, it's just long history of personal drama between the two groups of people, but it just has nothing to do with the software. So ignore it, basically, is what I'd say.
Jimmy, your thoughts on Wasabi versus Samurai?
I don't I haven't played too much with any of the CoinJoin protocols, so I'm going to refrain from this. I think privacy is something that we'll have in Bitcoin a little later, maybe as it becomes much more necessary. And we really need sort of like an attacker to really try to dox people, and associate certain UTXOs with certain users before we know how effective this stuff is. And that's kind of the problem right now, is a lot of people coin join and stuff, but they have no idea of its effectiveness because there's no investigator, there's nobody sort of pursuing and trying to figure that out. I don't know, maybe a government entity that starts doing that will test a lot of this stuff, but I'm still kind of skeptical as to how effective these things are, largely because not that many people use them, and therefore the anonymity sets tend to be low. And you're not going to know the effectiveness of something until somebody has an economic incentive to figure you out, and unfortunately the lessons have to be learned with money and pain and things of that nature. So I don't I'm not too into these yet. I do see the potential of a lot of these other ones, but yeah, it's not really going to be a big thing until we have some forces against it.
Yeah, this feud between Wasabi and Samurai has been going on for years. I mean, I just tried Googling it, and I was like, it's been going on for years. I try not to pick sides, but I will say that at the Understanding Bitcoin conference, we have Wasabi that participated in 2019, and he plans to participate again. Adam Fiskor, Wasabi wallet creator himself. Now, I would love to get Samurai there, and most people say that either solution can be good if properly used, and both solutions will advance. But I don't have the technological expertise to pick one side over another, but I have very respected friends in the space that have clearly picked a side, and almost everyone that I respect, if either they don't pick a side, like you saw on this show, or they picked a side, and the side that they pick is almost always Wasabi. So I have to go with the consensus here. If I was to look for a solution, I would probably go with Wasabi as well, and help that protocol and help that wallet, be more popular and more private. And also, we were kind of trolling Samurai for their venture into shitcoin. What do you call them?
Yeah. Monero. They're trying to do they're trying to do atomic swaps with Monero.
Right. So, right. Wait, is that the thing you said, mechanic, you're looking forward to, or it was something else?
No, I'm not looking forward to anything to do with Monero. I'm looking forward to CoinSwap, which is
CoinSwap. Okay, yeah. When you said that, for some reason I was thinking like the swap between different shitcoins.
No, CoinSwap. I hope Jimmy knows more than me on this and can elaborate, because I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's a Chris Belcher thing, and it means rather than use exact predictable.
Belcher, by the way, was the Joinmarket Fidelity Bond thing. So just same person.
Cool. Yeah, definitely a big guy in this part of Bitcoin. CoinSwap would just mean you can take a discrete amount of, say, 7.3258 Bitcoin or whatever you want, and you can trade and you can swap it for someone else's Bitcoin of the exact same amount. I imagine you'd lose some money to fees. But you'd break the link in the blockchain between the two. You'd end up with theirs and they'd end up with yours. And as a result, what you then spend afterwards is completely unlinked to anything in the blockchain. I believe that doesn't intuitively even make sense to me now that I'm saying it. But is that actually how it would work, Jim?
Oh, muted.
It's a little more complicated than that, but basically, instead of A to B and B to A, it's usually like A to B to C to D to E to F, and then F to A, something like that. So there's like and you do it with unlinked UTXO. So if I give you a UTXO and you give me a UTXO of the same amount, then there's those two are no longer sort of. You essentially take on my history and I take on your history, and it confuses all of the linking algorithms that they use for chain analysis and so on.
Yeah, this sounds really, really awesome. Oh, Jimmy, try to stay unmuted, though we don't have much else to cover because your mic really goes through voice fluctuations of loudness and softness. So yeah, that sounds really awesome. Yeah, I don't know, I guess it's a rough morning for me. But yeah, so when Samurai started looking into swaps between what the hell do you call those things again? The
chain atomic swaps, eh?
Yeah, the atomic swap stuff. I mean, look, eventually that's coming to Bitcoin, only because idiots want it. But in reality, devoting resources to that over continuing to try and make Bitcoin private, to me, drops Samurai wallet several notches on the list of wallets.
It's a pivot method. They're pivoting away from doing it within Bitcoin to just saying swap with Monero and swap back out again. I mean, it's legitimate to do it that way, and I couldn't criticize you if you did that. If you wanted to anonymize your entire Bitcoin KYC stack, you could just buy Monero with it and then sell the Monero again. I mean, it's not obviously it's got a lot of problems doing that, but I mean, it works to some extent, and like, you know, I don't know, but I mean, I'd rather you coin joined it, if I'm honest, but like Jimmy says, I don't know, Jimmy's making me more doubtful that coin joins are as effective as I believe them to be. I think they're pretty effective. I mean, it's like, you're relying on other people for it to some extent, and you're just hoping that there's enough other people that they can't all band together and effectively become one person who then knows who you are and who you aren't. Like it's like with onion routing. If you go through 3 hops that are all the FBI, then you're screwed, right? So if you do a coin join with 100 other participants, it's 100 participants and you're one of them, and the other 99 are law enforcement, then you're screwed again, right? So I don't know. I mean, your safety in numbers. Your safety comes in numbers with coin joining. So you hope enough people use it, really, that it's just too much.
And it's not an end-all solution to privacy. A lot more will have to be done. All right, guys, moving on to the last story. We're not going to talk about this much. Just read over the report. Bank of America outlines 4 potential benefits of El Salvador's Bitcoin strategy. It was pretty interesting. I didn't read into the whole report, but I did read over the highlights of the report. It's just something interesting. The banks are definitely looking at this. I know the IMF is pissed at El Salvador and there'll be retaliation, but banks are private entities, and those that are starting to research this, hopefully they will realize how valuable Bitcoin is. And the sooner the banks actually realize the value of Bitcoin, maybe there'll be another world of, pre-central bank controlled banking system where we can go back to having private banks. Any brief thoughts on this before I move on to the price? All right, take that as a no. All right, real quick, the mempool. Man, the mempool has been empty for what feels like forever now. The difficulty adjustment is going to be going up again. It will take place in approximately 1 week. And let me refresh this. Let me see if that number of blocks changes. Nope, that is the latest number of blocks. Right now, you can literally send free transactions of 1 Satoshis per byte. The last block barely had any transactions in it. The last block was 186 kilobytes. Jeez. All right, real quick. Is this good or bad that the mempool has been so empty?
I don't know. It is what it is. I don't think it's necessarily good or bad. But it does sort of speak to how profitable it is to mine right now. And just getting the mining reward is enough, because the hash rate, I think, is roughly equivalent to what it was like 10 months ago, something like that, when Bitcoin's price was 9,000. Obviously, there's a lot more. The Bitcoin's price is a lot more, and the equipment prices, I think, are a little more. But you can make a significant profit mining. So, the hash rate might be going up, and miners are very much incentivized to find blocks, and that puts sort of downward pressure on fees, which seems to be happening. I don't know if it's good or bad. It's just what it is.
Yeah, so I was on a show with Willy Woo, and I remember asking him to actually make this chart like years and years ago, back in 2017 or 18. And I asked him to pull it up, and he was amazed how much Segway transactions skyrocketed in the last few months, helping to clear the mempool. And that was, of course, blockchain.info finally adopting Segway. And you can see that Segway transactions are now over 76% of all transactions. Isn't that incredible?
I think this, I've been sort of toying with this idea for a while, but this makes me want to commit to it more publicly. I'm definitely, my sort of thesis was the idea that all this disruption in mining and all these horrible drops in difficulty that had happened with China kicking out miners and such meant that some businesses, it was just no longer viable to use the poor practices they were using, or the inefficient use of the blockchain. So they had to switch to something more efficient. This chart showing greater adoption of Segway definitely implies that I'm right, and that's definitely a factor. And we also have batching to consider as well, because lots of companies weren't using batching either. So, I mean, I can basically believe that this. I want to say that it shouldn't feel like people are using Bitcoin less or making fewer transactions, because that would feel somewhat like that would be somewhat worrying, but I don't think that's what's happening. I think it's being used more than ever. It's just that some parties have decided to use block space more efficiently. And what we've had to watch since around, 2016 to early 2018 was not real. That was all just spam from Bitmain and stuff like that, trying to push the narrative that Bitcoin had to have larger blocks and it was crippled. But after that, it sort of became, blocks became full more organically, and then it was more due to, I'd say it was more organic to consider the full blocks a result of companies just not using best practices. That's legitimate enough. And it's so correct. And it speaks to the absolute wisdom of the small blocker mentality or understanding of Bitcoin, to say that it's on people to use Bitcoin's block space more efficiently, far more than it is on Bitcoin to try and increase the capacity of block sizes. And you see a demonstration of that here. And I think it's generally a sign of the health of the ecosystem. Like, it's tempting to sort of look at it trivially and worry and say, why aren't there more transactions? Or how are miners going to get paid? But the schedule works out right. It's going to be a lot of decades before miners are really sitting there and needing transaction fees to subsidize them. Otherwise, they just have no incentive to mine anymore. That's a long way off.
And I find this to be really interesting right here. I should have talked about it with Willy as well. This was the highest Segway adoption we had in 2019. where Segway adoption was consistently above 50% for almost half a year. And then look at the transaction fee was incredibly low the whole time. And then I don't know what happened, but it's like people got lazy. And you can see that consistently from April 2020 all the way through January 2021, Segway adoption fell to under 50%. And we couldn't really explain why. Like, I don't understand how it was greater than 50% for 6 months, and then it was way under for like 9 months. And look what happened. The fee was creeping up, creeping up, creeping up. The mempool was getting more and more full. And then right here, everyone just said, oh shit. This was like April, May of last year when the fee started to spike again. And you can see the immediate rise in Segway adoption directly correlating with the rise in the fee. And that drove all of these other businesses to say, you know what, screw it. The technology has been there for 3 years now. We need to finally put it online. Otherwise, we're paying a $30, $40 fee. And then bam, you get this spike to 70% and the mempool clears up.
Yeah, I mean, that's got something to do with it. But yeah, we'll be watching. I suspect that there's going to be another bull run in the fall or something like that, and we'll see this all clog back up. So yeah, we'll see.
It would be nice if, like, this is a vindication ultimately of the small blockers, man, and it would be so nice if these idiots like Elon Musk who come here and want to rehash all these arguments would just actually look at it, because this is all of what was projected and considered conjecture back at the time, and it's all just shown itself to be totally accurate. You don't need to make blocks bigger in Bitcoin. It's not the right way to do stuff. It's not the correct approach. And just having Elon say, "Oh, if you don't want them bigger, then make them smaller." I'm so clever. Like, it's so annoying. I wish people would look at this. And anyway, let's leave it there. Let's go to the price.
All right, let's talk about the price for a minute. So the weekly chart is still pulling back, but the daily chart is showing you that we are in the 4th day of a correction. Granted, the 4th day of a correction started 1 day later than I expected it to start. I expected this to start on July 29th. We had a crazy day in the market, and we're correcting since then. I still expected this correction only to fall down to 37,500. Is the bottom in? We hit 37.7 thousand earlier today with a nice bounce right off of that. And as I was prepping for the show, we were still, the price of Bitcoin was sitting here at like 38.5, and I was ready to be all bullish, but I don't like the current hourly candle that is ending in 10 minutes. The current hourly candle is creating a new hourly closing low, and I don't like that. Now, we have not yet had a new swing low for this morning, but a new hourly closing low is not making me all that happy. Now, the 4-hour chart, I believe, had its MRI buy opportunity yesterday. It did. It started to rise. It did not materialize. So at this point, I have to lean on the side that there is a tiny bit more downside left. But we are in the 4th day of a correction. So if Bitcoin does not reverse fate in the next 36 hours, if we are not trading back above consistently above 38,500 within the next 36 hours, there may be a little bit more of a correction left. I'm leaning towards the fact that in the next 36 hours, Bitcoin will reverse in price and we will begin a new wave of the bull. If we do not reverse in the next 36 hours, then we can go down to this moving average down in the just under the $35,000 zone. Either way, I am preparing to buy that dip in GBTC this week. This is the dip I am looking to buy. I do not think this gap is going to close. I do think this will be a breakaway gap. The lower this thing goes, the more I'm interested in buying this dip to be 100% invested into Bitcoin, ready for its fall move to new all-time highs. Just a peek at gold. I'm still leaning a little bit more bullish on gold than bearish until we break these swing lows. Oil, I expected a dip in oil due to an MRI top. It reversed a little bit even earlier than that. So we wait and see on oil. I am bullish on the S&P 500. For now, I've been bullish. I am still bullish. All right, if you guys have any questions, fire away. We will bring you more info on understanding Bitcoin later this week. Hopefully, I can start ticket sales later this week. Also, don't forget about the financial summit in Dubai as well. Please check out Bitcoin decentralization article as we've discussed. You can find my calendar on the calendar section. We will all be in Mexico, myself, Jimmy, Mechanic, a few other people for the Bitcoin Standard Conference with Ugly. Jimmy, if I click on you, will it take me to your website?
You're muted, bro.
Oh, still muted.
Yeah. Unfortunately, no. I think you have to go to, well, yeah, that's a Bitcoin blog and stuff. Anyway, that's gonna take me to my Medium and all that. But yeah, those are yeah, I need to update that one. Jimmy saw we're programmingbitcoin.com if you want to go to it. That is my website. I have I am teaching a programming blockchain seminar at the Mexico conference. It's kind of getting late if you want to sign up for that, but I will have more later in the year. I have 3 books, Programming Bitcoin, the Little Bitcoin book, and Thank God for Bitcoin, all of which are available on Amazon for different audiences. Please go read the description if you are interested. I haven't updated the locations for Programming Blockchain yet, but the next one is in Mexico. I will have one in London and Atlanta in October and November once I finalize venues and so on. Otherwise, you can follow my newsletter, jimmysong.substack.com, which is called Bitcoin Tech Talk. And of course, I am on, I have my podcast, Bitcoin Fixes This, which is available at your favorite podcasting app.
All right, Mechanic, how about you?
Yeah, we're really having a good time at the moment. We're all heading down to Mexico, or I'm already in Mexico. We're going to do this great fun conference with Ugly Old Goat, the Bitcoin Standard Conference. Not so much else. Like, we got your conferences coming on as well, coming up soon. And oh, hello. No. sorry. We got one baby.
I see you have a baby. Yeah.
This is the mechanic family. This is my little girl.
Hey, Joyce.
Hi, Tone. Hi, Jimmy.
Yeah. So yeah, we're all down in Mexico. Super stoked to be here. It's a really family-friendly conference as well. So yeah, it's going to be great. I hope people come along, take Jimmy's class on I forget what's it, programming on the blockchain, of course, and then Giacomo's class as well. He's got on.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to make it to Giacomo's class.
Yeah, Goat's got his wife coming to that. Hey,
yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I think we all have to go. We all have top of the hour, prior engagements. Thank you all for watching, guys, and see you all on the next one.
Fiat Delenda S. This song is done.
Bye, guys.